welcome to Past, Present, and Future, or Three Questions, the podcast where we learn about people's career journeys, how they got to where they are today, and where they'd like to go to next. I'm Parrots Cohen, a technologist and a wordsmith, and in my time in industry, I've been fortunate to work with both large companies and small startups, alongside a number of very talented and hardworking individuals. This podcast is some of my conversations with them, where we learn about their journeys and what motivates them. If you'd like to be in the podcast, please feel free to reach out. You don't have to have a certain level of seniority or a number of years of experience. We all have something to share and learn from each other. If you'd like to sponsor the podcast or get involved in the collaboration, we'd also like to hear from you. All right, looking forward to our journey together as we learn more about each other and enrich ourselves in the process. Welcome to the show. Today we have with us Tessa. Hello, Tessa.
Hello, happy to be here.
Glad to have you on the program. We're going to start with the beginning. What got you into the developer ecosystem?
Oh, this is such a good question. Honestly, I started out in hospitality management. Let me actually take a step back. I've always loved technology. So I used to take things apart like VCR, which is going to make me sound old, other sort of devices that were my parents, right, when I was younger. And I just wanted to like understand how it all worked and how it all came together. My parents told me I should be in tech. And I said, no, you're telling me what to do. I'm going to do the opposite. And long story short, I ended up in restaurant management. And so being in hospitality management, also ended up being in a little bit of like an entertainment space as well for a while. Super rewarding. I loved it. I love hanging out with people. I really enjoyed it. But honestly, I started having kids and having a family, and getting home at 1 a.m. was just not something that I was too keen on anymore. And so actually, I had been dabbling in sort of, I think all of us, right, that are sort of technologists and that enjoy, technology in general, start to like dabble with coding and things as they're in high school or, in little side projects. And so I had dabbled a little bit, done a little bit of what was basically HTML and CSS. Although I will say it doesn't get a whole ton more complicated than that. When I was a developer, we had backend languages, of course, databases, all the things, but not the frameworks we see today. Long story short, it was a lot easier to pick up something new, to actually dive in, just looking at source code, picking up templates. And so I started just kind of dabbling. But then what really happened was that when I had my first child, who is now 16, oh my gosh, um, I was like on this binge of Guitar Hero. So I loved Guitar Hero. I loved gaming generally. And so I had this desire. I was on maternity leave, quote unquote, with my son, which I had stepped away from my role. And essentially I built a Guitar Hero community. So I brought together a lot of other different people that were playing Guitar Hero. I ended up building out what was like a tournament system. So I dug into PHP, dug into MySQL. There's probably a whole long conversation there about why I even picked those things to begin with. But long story short, ended up building this really cool tournament site for Guitar Hero. And then Guitar Hero, the actual community and company, right, actually brought me in as one of the moderators to their forum. They posted our tournaments inside of their forum. They sent me really cool swag and different types of stickers and sweatbands and pins and just kind of all this nerdy Guitar Hero stuff. And essentially, like, I feel like that's really what sort of seeded it, right? Is that I built this thing, I used these new skills. It obviously went swimmingly well because it was something I loved doing. So I was like, oh, community, let's grow together. Um, and I ended up in the ecosystem of technology and starting to freelance and building out different websites with the skills that I had. And obviously that, took me to where I am today. So that is how I got into tech.
That is incredible. I mean, I think all those notes for me as well, it definitely resonates with me. Kind of the aspects of community, the just picking up new technology. You mentioned PHP. I mean, not on the same scale, but I remember like over a weekend I picked up Drupal once and just kind of dove into it, and just um,
Love Drupal.
and that probably ages me as well by mentioning Drupal, but
No, it's
it's
still good.
yeah. Yeah, no, there's so many kind of great pieces over there, and kind of just in how careers come together through those different experiences and all different kind of different facets, I would say. But yeah, kind of
Absolutely.
moving on to today. What are you working on today? What is your current project, your business? I know it's been kind of gathering momentum, and it's really been impressive to see that start to take form.
Oh, thank you for that. Well, what I'm up to today, I think requires a little bit of backfilling of Guitar Hero days to today, right? And I did share a little bit that got into freelancing, started to scale that, got to expand my skills. I think the one thing about being self-taught that I think is a little tricky is that you don't have like a unit of measure of like, oh, I know the things I should know, or I don't know the things that I should know? And I think that makes it really difficult. So I spent a number of years being an actual engineer, engineering manager, really enjoying that. The last actual engineering role I had was at General Mills. So for me, I'm like, this self-taught girl from this, small town of 300 people. And my last engineering role was over at a huge, huge company, obviously, where I got to do open source, which is like even cooler because yes, open source and big corporations, that's where it's at, right? However, as we know, that shifted and now I'm in a business today. So when I had shifted in that space, I actually shifted into developer relations. And so for anyone listening, if you don't know, I'm sure that you know, but developer relations is more about that relationship side of hanging out with developers, building up that community. Very similar to the Guitar Hero example, honestly, but doing that for products and tools that developers need to use, sometimes services or other types of things. And so doing that, shifting into developer relations, really allowed me to just expand and take that hospitality and that customer service experience that I had and bring that into a technology space because I loved the people side of that. But at the end of the day, I want to play with tech. I want to build stuff. I want to take stuff apart. I want to know how it's working. And so being able to kind of forge both of those types of worlds or sort of dichotomies, right? As people like to call them dichotomies, because they like to think that we hang out in closets and just write code and don't talk to anybody. Um, I have got to spend the last 10 years, I think almost 10 years of my career in developer relations and in building out those. I don't think it's been quite 10 years because I had a little more time in engineering, but it's somewhere around there um, of building out these different programs, right, that bring developers together. And it's usually for a tool or a product or that type of a purpose. But at the end of the day, I'm still doing the same nerdy stuff I did with the Guitar Hero people. Like we're building cool stuff together. We're playing the game, right? We're enjoying what we're doing and we're helping one another build that together. And so today I have a business where I am essentially doing that, right? I am doing developer relations. Again, when you think about developer relations, really thinking about sort of a developer coming in, looking at a product or a service or an offering that you are positioning yourself to deliver to them. And developer relations is this idea of building a program where you can actually do that. You can serve these developers. And it's anything from, hey, let's go hang out in a community at an event. Maybe we literally are playing Guitar Hero because sometimes us tech nerds do that. Or we're talking about code or we're talking about their challenges and we're walking them through how can we resolve that? What does that look like? Do you have the documentation that you need? Do you understand the solutions that we can provide? And so now my business, I was most recently head of developer relations over at Snapchat, where I was working on an augmented reality SDK. Super cool. Can't wait for AR to take off. When I was laid off from that position, I've had this strong desire to be self-employed. And so I knew that that's what I wanted to do. I just didn't know how I wanted to do it. And so that was back in February. I took a couple months off and then really dove into my business in April-ish. Um, and now, as of today, I have carved out my niche. I've, figured out my target audience. And I work with dev tools in their early stage, usually with the direct technical, sometimes non-technical founders who have built those dev tools. And we are helping them, ooh, I hate to say this word, but go to market or words. But it is what we're doing, right? I come in, now my services are very structured around a 1 day sprint. Sometimes we split that into 2 days where it's 4 hours, but at the end of the day, it's about a 6 to 8 hour planning session that we go through around, hey, what is it that your tool can solve for the developers? who needs that tool, right? And who's willing to pay for that tool, which oftentimes can be a bit tricky when you go out and you build something. You're like, I know who needs it. I need it. My peers need it. But then when you sit down to actually think about who really needs it, it's a lot harder than that. And so we work through that planning process of just ensuring that we are very targeted and focused on the developers that we're reaching out to. And then we build their little DevRel program, right? So, and it's not little, but in early stage startups, it's a different capacity than I saw at Snap and Twitter, now known as X. But they are these just very beautiful developer relations programs that just chase after their objectives. And so in that day sprint, we're planning their next 90 days. And then the second part of my services are, hey, we'll also deliver your DevRel for you. And so most of my clients are in those packages as well. So it's really fun. I'm hanging out with dev tool founders. They're usually technical. So as I say, I'm hanging with my nerd herd. And we're just helping get their tool in the hands of developers, and ideally the right developers that need that and that are willing to provide that feedback, pay for the product, and really start to grow with them. As we all know, that's the customers we're looking for. So that was a long answer, but that's what I'm doing
No,
today.
no, that's incredible. And for me, like what comes to mind is for me, I've always prided myself throughout my career for like removing technical barriers. Like a lot of times people feel that um, access to technology or even kind of doing basic coding, HTML, CSS is too far from them. I think this is
Yep.
the inverse. A lot of engineers I've spoken to struggle with, I have a great product. How can I bring it to market? Do I kind of have the right tooling? This really kind of enables people to retain ownership of their idea. They don't have to dilute their ownership stake, but they're partnering with someone who understands both worlds and kind of can bridge those worlds. And that's incredible. Um,
Yes. That actually, just to like double tap on that, that is one of my active current client. We were talking in our consult call, and essentially that was like sort of a TLDR for them, was like, oh my gosh, you can be the bridge between our technical CEO and our somewhat non-technical COO, right? And I'm like, absolutely. And it's such a beautiful role to play. And I feel like you just explained DevRel really, really well in sort of its kind of essence, right? It's like that's what it is. Like we're the nerds hanging out with the nerds, right? We're talking the talk, we're hanging with the devs, but we have to come back and we have to relay that and understand how that shifts and converts into business action and strategy and results and change or shift if that's what it needs to do, right?
so if all the stars align, if you had to use DevRel terminology, if you had a rocket ship, where would you like to see how would you like to see this business grow and evolve in the next 3, 5, 10 years, whichever time frame is aligns best? Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. It's interesting because oftentimes I feel like when we're younger, we're really thinking about, I'm going to do this one day, I'm going to do that one day. And we don't lose that per se. But I feel like when you get further into your adulthood and the things are right in front of you, you kind of lose like the dream, you know? And I'm just having this revelation that, like, of course I have dreams and I have answers for this, right? But at the same time, I'm like, I've been so in my business for the last however many months, just trying to do everything right and learn and evolve and adapt, that I'm like, wow, okay, take a hot second, right? um I started my business with the mission that I feel so passionately about developer relations, and not just developer relations as a function, but so passionately about how that's just how we do business. Like, why can we not just do business in a way where we actually consider the user, consider their experience, consider where they're at, how we approach them, how we go about engaging with them? And it's just so intriguing to me that software engineers have been able to, I guess, somewhat demand this type of behavior, right? Like, this is how we want it, by not conforming to normal sales and marketing tactics. Um, so the mission of my business is essentially really to grow and evolve and show the world what developer relations can be, and how capable and how successful that it can be. Because I think, kind of taking a step back, if you don't know a ton about DevRel, there's a bit of sort of industry infancy. And it's not that it's new because Apple's been doing it since the 70s, right? But it's in terms of it being a known term, a known title, a known existence. It isn't as known, right? And what it is known for in some cases is what happened back during COVID when a lot of early stage dev tools, other developer platforms and products brought DevRel in, expecting it to just be this like marketing channel, right? All the devs. DevRel brings in all the devs. So like, let's all get DevRel. And then said, okay, go do your thing. But they didn't know what DevRel was, why they needed it. I mean, they knew why they needed it. They wanted the devs, but they didn't understand how to actually execute it and how to bring it in strategically. And so the failures of DevRel, I think, have now sort of left a bit of like an echo or a ripple, right? Of like, what is DevRel and what does it look like today? And I think that in that essence is just a lack of strategy. It was a lack of direction. And I think we all know if we're like mapless, right? We're trying to drive somewhere and we don't have our phones and we don't have a map. How do we get there? It's like intuition, it's guessing. And when we do those things, sure, some of us are lucky, some of us get it right. But without that direction, without that map telling us you need to go here and that's why you're going there, here's how you're going to get there, it's incredibly difficult to drive that success. So coming back around to my answer, I have this passion for just proving that developer relations is not this volatile role and a function that you shouldn't consider, and that it's actually the way we should do business. It's how we should engage with our customers by getting to know them, being there for them, being there with them, and listening to them because they will tell us what to build, how to build it, and why we're going to build it that way. And I just think that that's so beautiful. So my business in 3 years, let's say 3 years, I would like there to be 2 full-time DevRel leaders on my team who are leading DevRel contributors on their 2 teams. And let me explain why. Because with my clients, I am the strategist. I'm sort of the big picture. We're doing the plans, we're building everything out. What is it that's going to get you to that objective that you're looking for? And then I bring different people in that I'm currently guiding to help serve that because I'm not a developer advocate anymore. I'm on the strategic side. And it's not that I can't do it, it's just a waste of my skills. Not that it's a bad thing, but businesses need this other thing, right? And so I am now today bringing in DevRel experts who have full-time jobs or who are out in the industry and they're working for my clients part-time as sort of a side hustle, or maybe they're doing multiple clients and that is, sort of what they're doing for their monetary right now. I would love that to be more official. I would love there to be leaders inside of my company that are mentoring leaders under my guided direction, where together we are painting this beautiful picture for developer relations. But it's only for early stage dev tools. So anyone who is listening, if you're not an early stage dev tool, I apologize, but you don't fall into my target segment because I'm here to hang out with my fellow nerds. And I think if I had to go 5 years or beyond, I probably would have sold my business. So kind of leaking out that I'm here for a 5-year gain-ish, maybe a little longer if there's a challenge I didn't get to solve. But what I want to do next is actually get out of technology. I have a small farm, live in Waco, Texas, so it's a smaller city. We're out of town. I want to help my local businesses. And I used to do this a bit, and I do it every once in a while where I help with business coaching as well. It's the same thing. They're just not developers. It's just a slightly different context. And so my retirement job, I'm hoping, is actually business coaching in my small little area in town. And I've already built this beautiful business and someone else has taken over and they're bringing the DevRel dream forward on my behalf.
For me, like learning about your journey, learning about your working on, like the themes of community and connection kind of overlaid on kind of some of the interests and developer and kind of building business cases, like that was kind of the through line, really echoes for me. And for me,
Mm,
something which I definitely feel strongly about that you brought up, it's really kind of showing the strategic side of DevRel, proving the GTM and the business and the marketing value of it, not kind of
yeah.
as a replacement for marketing or as a kind of it's its own lane with its own tangible value. And I think being that one piece in the DevRel universe that proves what DevRel is as a known quantity, can really help the devil industry as a whole, and not for companies to view it on the larger corporate scale as a nice to have or as a first to go, etc. Um,
Yep.
but thank you so much for taking the time to be in the show today. We're going to have the links to your business and site, and please reach out if you're an early dev tool to Tessa. Um, just
Absolutely.
so wonderful to talk with you today.
Yes, it's been absolutely wonderful. I love this. I love getting to share my story, and these are really fun to listen to. So I can't wait to hear everyone else's stories too.
Thank you.